Community rights really interesting. I mean, they're new in terms of the legislation, but a lot of our members have been doing things that are linked to communities taking control and taking more ownership and more power over their neighbourhoods. And for the first time, we've got legislation that may be relevant in order to help them to do that more. So it's very much about understanding how we can take some legislation and apply it in practice and how they can use it in order to achieve outcomes and change in communities.
One of my roles is coordinating the advice service for Locality's community rights programme. So in the last 3 months or so, we've dealt with about 1,300 inquiries to the organisation over that period. So there's a huge amount of interest in community rights, and those individuals want to make it work for them in the best way they can, and we're the one-stop shop for that.
I think in practice, I think one of the biggest benefits for community groups is the way they has changed the dynamic of the conversations between community organisations and local authorities. I'm already seeing that with groups much more proactively engaging, talking to their authorities about opportunities in buildings, catalysed by this new legislation, publicity around that.
But we've dealt with a lot of inquiries concerning groups which are concerned about well-loved and precious assets of community value which are under threat for all sorts of different reasons, or there's new opportunities for bringing them into more productive use, and they want to use the rights to make that happen or to strengthen their case.
The Community Rights Programme helps communities to really make a difference, possibly in areas where previously red tape or obstacles were standing in the way. And this has the potential to be really, really helpful for local groups.
For starters, there's 4 community rights which are attached to the Localism Act. It's community right to bid, community right to build, community right to challenge, and the neighbourhood planning programme. And they all offer something depending on what a particular area of interest is.
We've been doing quite a lot of work to get people used to what these mean, and I've been providing quite detailed advice on telephone and email to a range of different groups that are inquiring about whether the rights apply to them. Putting them into practice, it's all still quite new. Rights have been coming in the last 6 months or so, so on the ground it's going to take time, and we're already working with a series of groups in different parts of the country that are looking at taking on a community pub or taking over a pub and turning it into a community organisation or community building.
So the community rights that have been brought in by the Localism Act are important, but they build on a long history of previous ways to sort things out locally. So, for example, asset transfer has been possible for many years, and we have supported many groups to transfer buildings from local government ownership into community ownership. What the community right to bid does is allow communities to list the buildings that they would like to bring into community ownership and would hate to lose, list those with the council, and then if those buildings come on the market, whether they're privately owned or publicly owned, the group has first of all 6 months in which to raise the money to buy the building.
I just met with somebody the other day, for example, who's looking to purchase an old brewery and work with a community developer as a community-owned power station, focusing on renewable generation. So it's quite a radical and interesting project, and that could potentially bring together a whole number of strands through the programme, whether that be neighbourhood planning to designate zoning areas, community right to buy to help get planning permission for that project, and community right to bid potentially for the building.
The community right to challenge, for example, gives them an opportunity to bid for contracts linked to the delivery of local services in cases where they think they can do it better or more cheaply or more efficiently than the local authority, and that's created quite a bit of interest.
where we're working with an organisation looking to use the community right to challenge is actually where the organisation probably aren't going to need to use the right to challenge in the end, but they contacted us for some advice around the rights around available finance. It's an organisation in Grimsby in Lincolnshire that's looking to work with its local authority to get a contract to deliver recycling collections, and it's actually it's a pretty standard contract for an organisation to go for, but for this organisation it'll be a major step up, and we've been working with them to look at framing a feasibility application under the right to challenge grant process, even though they're not going to use the right to challenge probably because the local authority are keen to work with them. They can still use that grant money, so they're going to be using that to develop their skills as an organisation.
The Community Right to Build offers a new and simplified route to achieving planning and building of community facilities such as community centres or, importantly, affordable local housing.
It's a right that is within the neighbourhood planning regulations. It allows community-based organisations to bring forward small-scale development within their own neighbourhoods. So there are lots of communities that I've been working with over a number of years because, as I say, based down in the southwest, there are a significant number of rural communities where the need has been for housing for younger people or a play area or a community facility, but never in a month of Sundays has the developer actually come in and built those things within the community because there's no profit in it, because it's not deemed to be what the planning authority wants. So the Community Right to Build allows community groups to bring forward development for themselves within their own communities.
There's a group of local residents that we've met in the centre of Southampton who want to use the community rights to limit the number of students that are living in the area. This particular community is one of the most deprived in the south of England. They've had a lot of money and regeneration programmes over the years, so they feel they know pretty well what it is that they want. The area is fairly typical turn of the century terraced housing with very little open space and very few community facilities. The two sites that they're interested in taking for community use are currently going to be student housing, which would bring another 3,000 residents into the area. And it's interesting to work out how, as local residents, they could challenge that and turn at least one of those sites into a community hall. And the key question now is whether Community Rights and the Localism Act can help them to do something that it hasn't been possible to do before.
I think the most important element of the community rights is the fact that they're there and that it raises community aspiration to develop own assets and to deliver services. It raises that as a viable alternative to the status quo and gives encouragement to organisations to travel that path, but also puts pressure and gives encouragement to the public sector to change the way in which it relates to our members.
I think the real power is going to be in the fact that those community rights are there, the fact that local authorities know that community organisations can use them, and the fact that the community organisations have them in their armoury. And one of the things which I really hope it's going to stimulate is a lot more interaction between local authorities and community organisations, both in relation to assets, but also in relation to organisations really sort of skilling up and taking on and running local public services on a contract with a council.
But at the end of the day, it's a new route. It's legislation with the force of law to begin to just level up the power balance between communities and local authorities.